Hey everyone, welcome back to Movie Shorts Hub. If you're new here, smash that like button, subscribe, and buckle up, because today we're diving deep into the very beginning of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the one that started it all. Iron Man, 2008. This isn't just another superhero flick. This is ground zero for the MCU. The moment that gave us Tony Stark, a billionaire playboy genius who turned his life around and became something the world had never seen before. And trust me, we're not just giving you a short rundown. Nope. This is the full cinematic experience, scene by scene, vibe by vibe, told like you're watching it again, but through a fresh lens. So without wasting any more time, let's roll. The story begins. Kunar Province, Afghanistan. The movie opens up in the dusty, rugged mountains of Afghanistan, specifically the Kunar Province. American military convoys are rolling through these barren, dangerous roads. We're talking Humvees, armored trucks, the whole deal. Soldiers are armed to the teeth. The mood is tense. But inside one of those armored vehicles, the vibe is totally different. Sitting there, sipping on his drink, cracking jokes like he owns the whole damn world, is Tony Stark. And not just any Tony. This is peak arrogant billionaire Tony. Genius, playboy, billionaire. And yeah, weapons dealer. The guy's rocking a slick suit, sunglasses, and charisma that could light up the desert. The soldiers around him, at first, stiff and formal. Sir, yes sir type. But Tony being Tony, he breaks the ice with sarcasm, telling them to relax, even letting one of the soldiers take a picture with him. That right here sets the tone. Tony's not your regular uptight CEO. He's witty, cocky, the kind of guy who doesn't care about danger because he's too busy enjoying his own fame. But just as everyone starts loosening up, laughing, having a good time, boom! Out of nowhere, the convoy is ambushed. Gunfire rattles the air, bullets slice through metal. The soldiers scramble, firing back, but the attackers are brutal, well-armed, and relentless. The camera work here? Shaky, chaotic, designed to put you right in the middle of the fight. Tony, panicked but trying to survive, stumbles out of the vehicle, diving for cover. He's no soldier. He's a weapons mogul who suddenly finds himself in the middle of a war zone with his own creations raining down around him. And then it hits him. Literally. A missile lands near him, the explosion knocking him flat on the ground. And when the dust clears, Tony sees the logo stamped on the weapon that just tore through his convoy. Stark Industries. Yeah, his own company's weapons. His own legacy of destruction staring him in the face. The shock registers for just a split second before shrapnel blasts through his chest. Tony gasps, clutching his bleeding torso, everything fading to black as soldiers scream in the background. That right there is the gut punch that sets this entire movie and the entire MCU into motion. 36 hours earlier, the flashback. Now, the movie does a slick time jump. We roll back to 36 hours earlier, when Tony Stark was living his life like the ultimate rock star genius. And this is where the contrast really hits. The scene shifts to a black tie gala in Las Vegas. Expensive suits, flowing champagne, flashing cameras, and the kind of luxury only billionaires swim in. This is the Apogee Awards ceremony, where Tony Stark is being honored as Weapons Manufacturer of the Year. But guess what? He's not even there. Instead, it's Tony's right-hand man, his military buddy, Colonel James Rhodey Rhodes, who's accepting the award on his behalf. Rhodey is frustrated but loyal, giving a tight speech about Tony's genius and how Stark Industries has been at the forefront of America's defense since his father, Howard Stark, laid the foundation decades ago. We get a quick rundown of Tony's backstory through clips and narration. At just 4 years old, Tony built his first circuit board. By 6, he had engineered his first engine. At 17, he graduated from MIT. And by 21, he took over Stark Industries after his parents' death in a car accident. Basically, Tony's been a prodigy, a billionaire, and a playboy all his life. But instead of focusing on necklace, he doesn't just walk into a room, he owns it. He cracks jokes, flirts shamelessly, and treats life like one big game. That's when we meet Vanity Fair reporter Christine Everhart. She confronts Tony with some hard-hitting questions about his company fueling global conflict. How can you justify making weapons that cause so much destruction? She asks. And Tony? Cool as ice. He flips it back on her with razor-sharp wit. The day weapons are no longer needed to keep the peace, I'll start making something else, like hospital supplies. He reminds her that America has enemies, and those enemies won't stop just because people like her wish it. His cocky smirk says it all. Tony Stark truly believes he's untouchable. Of course, one drink leads to another, and by the end of the night, Christine Everhart ends up in Tony's Malibu mansion, waking up the next morning to see his robotic assistants and futuristic gadgets lying around like it's no big deal. Enter Pepper Potts, Tony's loyal assistant and probably the only person who can keep his chaos in check. She shows Christine the door with grace, but also with a hint of jealousy hidden under her professional exterior. Pepper is the grounding force to Tony's hurricane lifestyle. Back to business. Heading to Afghanistan. After the Vegas escapade, Tony's schedule is back on track. Kind of. Rhodey drags him to board his private jet bound for Afghanistan, where Tony will personally demonstrate Stark Industries' crown jewel weapon, the Jericho missile. On the jet, Tony is still in his element. While Rhodey's trying to discuss serious military strategy, Tony's pouring shots of whiskey, turning the flight into a party. Rhodey reluctantly gives in, the two toasting mid-flight, establishing their brotherly bond, a mix of frustration and deep loyalty. Cut to Afghanistan. Tony stands before a group of U.S. military officers and Afghan officials, presenting the Jericho missile. The demonstration is pure Tony Stark showmanship. He raises his arms, smirking, as the missile launches with a thunderous roar, splitting into dozens of smaller rockets that obliterate an entire mountain range in a fiery explosion. The shockwave hits the soldiers like a punch in the chest, leaving them awestruck. Tony, ever the salesman, spreads his arms wide and says, "They say the best weapon is one you never have to fire. I respectfully disagree. I prefer the weapon you only have to fire once. That's how Dad did it. That's how America does it. And it's worked out pretty well so far." The crowd eats it up. Tony closes the deal, cementing himself as the king of weapons. And just like that, we're back to the armored convoy scene, where his life takes that fateful turn. Tony Stark is back home, but this ain't the same billionaire playboy we met at the start. The swagger is still there, the sharp wit, the high-end lifestyle. But behind those witty comebacks and his luxury Malibu mansion, there's a man who just stared death in the face and made it out by building a metal suit in a cave. That changes you, man. Big time. Obadiah Stane, his father's old partner and now a big shot at Stark Industries, welcomes Tony back. He acts all warm and friendly, like a caring uncle figure. But you can feel there's something off. The way he talks, the way he masks his words behind smiles. That's Hollywood villain energy right there. But Tony, still recovering, doesn't catch on yet. Meanwhile, the press is buzzing. Everyone wants to know, what's the next move for Tony Stark? The world still sees him as the genius weapons dealer, the guy who built bombs and missiles to keep America on top of the global food chain. But Tony has seen his weapons fall into the wrong hands, literally used against him by the Ten Rings. That messes with his head. So, in true Tony Stark fashion, he decides to blow up the whole playbook. At a press conference, dressed sharp in that classic Stark suit, he shocks the entire world. He announces that Stark Industries will no longer manufacture weapons. Boom. Mic drop. The room goes dead silent. Reporters are scrambling. Investors are freaking out. And Obadiah? Yeah, he's low-key losing it behind the calm face. This isn't just a business decision. This is Tony Stark flipping the bird to decades of legacy and billions of dollars. But Tony doesn't care. For the first time, the guy's got a conscience. He's no longer the carefree billionaire. He's a man on a mission. But let's be real. You can't just turn off the defense industry like a light switch. Politicians, the military, shareholders, all of them, they're not happy. They see Tony as reckless, unpredictable, and maybe even dangerous. And yet, that rebellious, screw-the-rules vibe, that's exactly why audiences in 2008 fell in love with him. He wasn't your typical superhero in tights. He was raw, cocky, and flawed. But he had heart. Back at his mansion, Tony starts tinkering. And this is where Marvel really flexes. We get those legendary workshop scenes, sparks flying, robotic arms helping him out, holograms spinning in the air. Tony begins building something better, something sleeker, something truly his. He's designing Iron Man Mark II. The movie slows down here, but in the best way. We get to see the genius at work. It's not just, bam, superhero suit ready. No, he crashes, he falls, he screws up. Remember that hilarious scene where he tests his flight stabilizers and ends up slamming into the wall? Yeah, Classic. Or when he orders his AI, JRVIS, to simulate icing problems at high altitude? That's Tony. He doesn't just build. He over-engineers and stress tests like a mad scientist. This is what made the MCU hit different. Instead of skipping to the action, they let us live with Tony as he evolves. We see him fail, we see him curse at his robots, and we see him pick himself back up. That's the grind. That's why when the suit finally comes together, when he nails that first controlled flight, it feels earned. But the world outside Stark's garage doesn't stop. The 10 rings? They're not done either. They recovered the remains of Tony's cave-built Mark I armor, and now they're trying to reverse engineer it. This little subplot plants the seeds of global stakes. The world's worst people now want Stark tech. And trust me, that's bad news. At the same time, Obadiah's mask begins to slip. Behind closed doors, he's making shady moves. He's more involved with the terrorists than Tony realizes. And while Tony is trying to fix his past mistakes, Obadiah is scheming to make sure Stark Industries keeps its iron grip on the war business. That's tension building right there. But before we dive into villainy, let's not forget the heart of this film. Tony and Pepper. Their chemistry is unreal. Pepper Potts isn't just his assistant. She's his anchor, his moral compass. She calls him out when he's being arrogant, and she genuinely cares when he pushes himself too far. The elevator scene where she helps him swap out the arc reactor in his chest, that moment is equal parts hilarious and intimate. Tony joking about her reaching inside his chest while she's legit freaking out? Pure MCU magic. By this point, the movie is setting its rhythm. Tony building, learning, stumbling, and rising. Obadiah lurking in the shadows, the world reacting to a changed Stark, and the promise of something epic about to drop. Because once that Mark II is ready, once Tony suits up for real, the game changes. Back in Malibu, we see Tony doing something that honestly looks way less glamorous than you'd expect from a billionaire playboy. He's not sipping martinis, not cruising in exotic cars. Nah, he's down in his underground workshop, tinkering like some obsessed mechanic who doesn't even sleep. This is the side of Tony Stark the world never sees. To the public, he's the genius billionaire with a glass of whiskey in one hand and a supermodel in the other. But here, in his lab, he's a man possessed. He studies the Mark I blueprint, the clunky cave suit that kept him alive, and begins sketching something sleeker, faster, more powerful. Something that isn't just survival, something that could change the damn world. Jarvis, his snarky AI assistant, is right there with him, throwing sarcastic quips like a dry British butler, but also helping him simulate designs. And Tony? He's getting more excited with every new upgrade he imagines. He starts crafting the Mark II prototype, building a new arc reactor to power it, and upgrading the thrusters. And this is where we see just how insane Stark's brilliance is. Dude's not just welding metal. He's reinventing technology that no one else has even dreamed of. But of course, Tony being Tony, it ain't smooth sailing. He straps on the hand repulsors to test stability, and what happens? Boom! He nearly blasts himself across the lab like some Looney Tunes character. The scene is hilarious, but also iconic, because it's the birth of Iron Man's repulsor tech. Then we get the thruster test. Tony rigs up the new boots, balances himself like a kid trying roller skates for the first time, and bam, slams straight into the wall. Jarvis is like, maybe you should take it slow, but Tony's not the kind of guy who takes it slow. Each failure fuels him more. Cut to Pepper Potts, coming down into the lab with her classic, "You're impossible, but I care about you" energy. She finds Tony sweaty, covered in grease, but glowing with excitement. He shows her the new miniaturized arc reactor, the one that's smaller, cleaner, more advanced than the crude thing he built in the cave. And in a rare soft moment, Pepper helps him replace it. It's intimate, emotional, and a subtle hint that there's something deeper between these two. She slides her hand close to his chest, carefully locking the new arc reactor into place, and Tony, being Tony, still cracks a joke, saying it's like she's literally holding his heart in her hands. Meanwhile, on the darker side of things, Obadiah Stane, the smiling, bald-headed uncle figure in Stark Industries, starts showing his real cards. See, Stane's been playing both sides. While Tony's building Iron Man in secret, Obadiah is making backdoor deals with the 10 Rings. He's furious that Tony shut down weapons manufacturing, because that means his profits are tanking. So what does he do? He heads straight to the terrorists in Afghanistan, demanding they hand over the remains of Tony's Mark I suit. And let me tell you, the Ten Rings aren't stupid. They know exactly what Stark built in that cave, and they want it replicated. But Obadiah? He's got bigger ideas. He wants that tech for himself. He wants to replace Tony, not support him. This is where the betrayal seeds are fully planted. Back in Malibu, Tony keeps grinding. The Mark II is taking shape. Sleek silver armor, cutting-edge systems, and that iconic HUD interface. He suits up for the first real test flight, and honestly, this moment is goosebumps central. Tony activates the thrusters, lifts off, and for the first time, Iron Man flies. At first, he's shaky, bumping into walls, crashing through his garage like a drunk driver, but once he hits the skies, damn, it's majestic. He rockets through Malibu, soaring above the ocean, breaking speed limits like it's nothing. Jarvis feeds him data. Tony laughs like a kid who just found his favorite toy, and for the first time in his life, he's not just a genius making weapons, he's something more. But of course, there's a catch. He goes too high, the suit ices up, and suddenly Iron Man's about to become Iron Popsicle. Tony panics. Systems crash, alarms blare, and just when you think he's about to plummet to his death, he uses his brain, reboots, and manages to recover. It's messy, it's raw, but it's Iron Man being born in real time. Back on the ground, he crashes through his roof like a meteor, crushing one of his cars in the garage. Jarvis tells him, "Perhaps a little icing problem, sir." And Tony, still laughing, realizes, this is it. This is who he's meant to be. Meanwhile, Pepper keeps noticing Tony pulling away from the world, skipping meetings, ditching board responsibilities, obsessing in the lab. She doesn't know the full truth yet, but she senses something massive is happening. And she's right. Because Tony's not just building a suit, he's building a whole new identity. The days of Stark, the careless billionaire, are numbered. The age of Iron Man is just beginning. Tony's Malibu mansion is buzzing with new energy. While the world thinks he's just another eccentric billionaire trying to stay out of trouble, behind closed doors, Stark is literally reinventing the future. The Mark II suit, sleek, silver, and raw, is only the beginning. Inside his workshop, we get those iconic montages of Tony tinkering. He's not delegating this to engineers or big teams. This is hands-on Stark magic. He's welding, coding, running simulations, and of course, arguing with his AI assistant, Jarvis. The dialogue here adds that playful banter tone, making the whole process feel grounded yet futuristic. When the suit finally powers up, it's not about war. It's about testing his limits. Tony locks himself in the workshop, tells Jarvis to run pre-flight checks, and the moment he steps into that rig, you can feel the shift. The audience knows this is no longer just an experiment. It's history being written. And then comes one of the coolest sequences. Tony's first full-blown flight test. He takes off, blasts through his glass ceiling, literally, and rockets into the night sky over Los Angeles. At first, it's clunky. He struggles with altitude controls, condensation starts freezing the suit, and for a moment, you think he might crash. But then, classic Tony Stark, he improvises mid-flight, reroutes power, and stabilizes. The sheer joy on his face as he zips past jets and soars above the city skyline? That's not just a superhero being born, that's a man rediscovering freedom. Meanwhile, Obadiah Stane is getting suspicious. He's playing the smiling mentor in public, but behind the scenes, he's digging into what Tony's been building. Stane's whole life revolves around profit, weapons contracts, and dominance in the defense sector. Tony ditching the weapons division is bad for business. And Obadiah doesn't just play defense, he plays dirty. We cut back to Tony, who's still refining the Mark II. The landing sequences? Brutal. He slams into walls, crashes through floors, and leaves his mansion looking like a war zone. But that's the beauty of these scenes. They mix comedy with genius. Watching him argue with his robotic arms, not the fire extinguisher again, is peak Marvel charm. It humanizes the process. This isn't a god born with power. It's a man earning it through sweat, bruises, and relentless drive. And then, we get that unforgettable suit painting debate. Gold or red? Jarvis runs simulations, swapping colors on screen, until Tony settles on that now iconic hot rod red and gold combo. It's stylish, bold, and pure Stark. Parallel to this, we see Tony's relationship with Pepper Potts evolving. She's not just a secretary, she's the one keeping him grounded. When Tony asks her to help with his little project, we see glimpses of her loyalty, concern, and that subtle romantic tension brewing under the surface. Pepper isn't impressed by the glitz. She's worried about Tony risking his life. But at the same time, she knows he's chasing something bigger than himself. The next major turning point comes when Tony sees news reports of Gulmira, the very village Yinsen was from, being terrorized by the Ten Rings. They're using Stark Industries weapons, the same weapons Tony once proudly sold. This is the gut punch moment. He realizes his legacy has been hijacked, his name stamped on destruction he never intended. And so, the Mark III is born. Red and gold, fully armed, fully powered. Tony's mission is no longer about escape or survival. It's about accountability, about making things right. He suits up, locks in, and for the first time, Iron Man heads into battle. The world outside Malibu doesn't know it yet, but Tony Stark is no longer just the billionaire genius in a shiny mansion. He's about to take responsibility for the damage his weapons caused. And his first stop? Gulmira, the very village where Yinsen's family lived, the place that suffered because of Stark tech falling into the wrong hands. Tony's transformation into Iron Man comes to life in this sequence. He's no longer testing or fooling around in his garage. This is a mission, personal and raw. The Mark III suit, now painted in that hot rod red and gold, gleams as it locks into place around him. The HUD lights up, targeting systems come online, and JARVIS runs final checks. You can feel the intensity building. It's not just another test flight. It's his first act of justice. Cut to Gulmira. Chaos in the streets. Armed soldiers of the Ten Rings drag villagers. Kids cry in the background. Families are being split apart. Trucks filled with Stark Industries weapons roll through the dusty roads, reminding us how deep Tony's company has fueled destruction. The villagers are helpless, and the entire atmosphere feels hopeless. And then, the sky rips open with a sonic boom. Iron Man rockets in, descending like a force of nature. At first, the militants are confused, pointing their guns upward. But then, Tony unleashes the full potential of the suit. Shoulder-mounted mini-missiles, repulsor blasts, precision strikes. Everything Stark built is finally being used not for war profits, but for liberation. The choreography of this battle is sharp and tactical. He doesn't just charge in, he disables tanks with pinpoint hits, knocks out gunmen without unnecessary bloodshed, and protects civilians first. One of the most iconic moments, a tank locks onto him and fires. The shell slams into his chest, and for a second, he crashes into the dirt. The militants cheer, thinking they've killed him. But then Tony stands up, brushes himself off, and fires a single missile that blows the tank sky high. He doesn't wait to admire the explosion. He just turns and walks away, cool as ever. That's the Iron Man swagger. The rescue isn't just action, it's personal closure. Tony frees a group of villagers being held hostage. He scans the area with his HUD, takes down gunmen one by one, and leaves the people in safety. This is his redemption, his first step toward rewriting the Stark legacy. But Tony's dramatic entrance doesn't go unnoticed. Back in the US, the military picks up an unidentified object flying at extreme speeds. Colonel James "Rhodey" Rhodes, Tony's best friend and Air Force officer, is called into action. He doesn't know it's Tony in that suit. He just sees a mysterious, heavily armed aircraft violating airspace. Cue one of the most thrilling chase sequences. Fighter jets are scrambled. Iron Man finds himself in a dogfight over the desert skies. JARVIS warns him. Multiple bogies inbound. Instead of escaping, Tony tries to outmaneuver them. He flips through clouds, blasts afterburners, even clings onto a jet like something straight out of a sci-fi thriller. In the middle of it all, Tony calls Rhodey. The back and forth is hilarious and tense at the same time. Rhodey, Tony, what the hell are you doing? Tony, it's me. Just don't shoot. But Rhodey has orders. And Tony is still classified as an unknown threat. The tension balances humor with danger perfectly. Finally, Tony manages to escape. Barely. One of the jets gets damaged in the chaos, forcing the pilot to eject, and for a tense moment, his parachute doesn't deploy. Without hesitation, Iron Man swoops in, deploys the chute himself, and saves the pilot. That moment cements who Tony has become. This isn't about ego anymore. It's about lives. Back on the ground, though, Tony's actions have consequences. Rhodey now suspects Tony is behind the mystery weapon, but he keeps it under wraps. For the public, Stark Industries continues to be under fire as images from Gulmira spread. The world doesn't know who Iron Man is yet, but whispers are growing. And while Tony is busy taking on terrorists, Obadiah Stane is plotting in the shadows. He confronts the Ten Rings himself, furious that Tony escaped their original trap. He wants the scraps of Tony's Mark I armor, and with Stark's resources, he begins developing his own monstrous suit. Unlike Tony, Stane isn't building to protect, he's building for dominance. The seeds are planted. Iron Man is becoming a symbol, but Iron Monger is rising right behind him. So now, after his bold escape and his first official flight test in the Mark II, Tony's starting to feel himself again. He's back in his workshop, tweaking the design, fixing little malfunctions, but most importantly, he's grinning like a kid who just discovered jetpacks are real. That adrenaline rush from flying? Yeah, he's hooked. But before he can perfect the armor, reality checks back in. Obadiah Stane pays Tony another visit, this time not with fake smiles, but with a chilling edge to his tone. Obi straight up warns Tony, Stark Industries is in trouble. The board is panicking. Stocks are dipping. Investors are bailing. And worst of all, the military contracts are slipping through their fingers because Tony's gone rogue. Now here's the twist. Obadiah doesn't come off as angry. Nah, he plays the manipulative father figure card. He tells Tony, you're a great mind, a visionary, but you don't understand business. Let me handle this. And the way he says it, it's dripping with fake care, like a wolf patting a sheep before dinner. Tony, of course, is too wrapped up in his guilt and his mission to catch on fully. He brushes Obi off and dives deeper into his project. But Pepper Potts? Oh, she sees something off. She's always been Tony's anchor, the one person who keeps him from floating away in his own ego. And now she's watching him distance himself from the company, from everything that made him Tony Stark, the billionaire playboy. Then, boom, we cut to a darker corner of the world. Remember those Ten Rings terrorists? Yeah, they're not done. Turns out, they salvaged all the broken pieces of Tony's Mark I suit, the same suit he built in that cave, and they're trying to rebuild it. It looks janky, clunky, but terrifyingly close. They don't understand the arc reactor tech, though. That's Tony's secret sauce. But they're determined. Now back in Malibu, Tony finally cracks a major problem: icing at high altitude. He tests the Mark II again, shoots up into the stratosphere, and for a moment, he's flying higher than jets, higher than ever before. But the suit starts to freeze. Systems fail, and Tony plummets like a rock. Last second, he reboots, stabilizes, and lands with a bone-rattling crash on top of his fancy sports car collection. Yep, dozens of luxury rides, flattened by one Iron Man. His reaction? Totally classic Stark. He winces, then chuckles. Sometimes you gotta run before you can walk. But this is where the Iron Man identity truly starts to form. Tony isn't just testing tech, he's training himself. He's learning how to fly, how to handle the weight of the armor, and more importantly, how to live with his decision to use it as a weapon for justice. Later that night, Pepper walks in on Tony in the workshop. He's bruised, greasy, half in and out of the armor, but his determination is unshakable. Pepper's scared. She doesn't want to see him kill himself chasing this crusade. But Tony looks her dead in the eye and says something that finally reveals his heart. I shouldn't be alive unless it was for a reason. I just finally know what I have to do, and I know in my heart that it's right. That's the turning point. Tony Stark, the selfish genius, is gone, and Iron Man, the hero, is starting to take shape. But guess what? Obadiah is not about to let that slide. Behind the scenes, he's scheming harder than ever. He makes a trip to meet the Ten Rings terrorists, and this is where we see the full betrayal. Obi didn't just know about Tony's capture, he orchestrated it. He paid them to kill Tony in the desert, to take him out of the picture. Only problem? Tony built that damn suit and survived. Now, Obadiah wants the scraps. He wants them to finish building the replica armor so he can mass produce it. The Ten Rings, though, they try to double-cross him. Big mistake. Obi pulls out this sonic paralysis gadget, straight up freezes them mid-sentence, choking and twitching, unable to move. Then he calmly orders his men to wipe them out. Cold, no hesitation. That's when it hits us. Obadiah Stane isn't just a shady businessman. He's a straight-up villain. Back in the States, Tony doesn't know the full extent yet. He's still building, still testing, still preparing for what's next. But the storm? Oh, it's about to hit. Tony goes rogue. Tony Stark isn't waiting on anyone's permission anymore. The moment he discovers Obadiah Stane's dirty secret, that his so-called mentor has been running backdoor deals with terrorists, his mission turns personal. We catch Tony back in his lab, eyes blazing with focus. He's welding, testing, adjusting. The gold titanium alloy armor is sleek now, aerodynamic, glowing with that signature arc reactor in the chest. It's not the clunky cave-born suit anymore. It's the dawn of Iron Man. And when he steps inside that suit for the first time and those plates lock into place with that mechanical clank, you just know history is being made. The suit powers up, HUD flashing inside his helmet. JARVIS runs the checks. Power at 100%. Flight systems engaged. Tony smirks. Let's see what this bad boy can do. He takes off. And man, the flight test sequence is something else. The boosters fire, and he rockets into the sky. At first, it's shaky. Tony's flailing, spinning, nearly slamming into his house. He crashes through walls, flips cars, almost destroys his mansion in the process. But with each mistake, he's learning. By the time he stabilizes, he's soaring over the Pacific, gliding like a jet fighter. But it's not just about fun. Tony takes the suit global. His first real mission? Gulmira, the Afghan village Yinsen once called home, the same place the Ten Rings are still terrorizing innocents. Tony rockets in, stealth systems engaged, and for the first time, the people see Iron Man. The terrorists line up civilians, preparing to execute them. Suddenly, missiles lock onto their trucks, and boom! Vehicles explode in fiery chaos. Tony drops down from the sky, repulsors glowing, his suit reflecting flames. The bad guys panic, unleashing gunfire, but it's useless. Bullets bounce off the titanium alloy like pebbles against a tank. Tony fights back with precision. He doesn't just mow them down. He disables their weapons, pins them, scares them into running. One dramatic shot shows him locking onto a group of terrorists hiding behind a wall. Mini missiles launch from his shoulder compartments, hitting with surgical accuracy. Kaboom! Dust clears. Terrorists gone. The villagers look up in awe. Tony Stark, billionaire playboy, is now their armored savior. But this mission isn't just about heroics, it's about redemption. Tony sees kids running free, families hugging. And for a brief moment, you can see the guilt lift from his shoulders. He's not just fixing his past mistakes, he's building a future. Of course, the US military doesn't see it that way. Back at HQ, Colonel James Rhodey Rhodes gets word of an unidentified bogey ripping through Afghanistan. "That's not one of ours," he mutters, trying to track it. Cue the fighter jets. What follows is a pulse-pounding dogfight. Two F-22 Raptors lock onto Iron Man. Tony dodges, spins, rockets up into the stratosphere. It's me, don't shoot," he shouts into the comms, trying to convince Rhodey. But to the Air Force, he's a rogue weapon. The jets fire missiles. Tony counters, deploying flares, diving through clouds, hugging the desert floor at Mach speed. At one point, he even ends up on the back of a jet mid-flight, tearing off a wing stabilizer. The pilot ejects at the last second, parachute failing. Tony, thinking fast, swoops in, grabs the guy and saves him, cementing the fact that he's not the enemy. When the dust settles, Rhodey's like, "You're not serious? It's you in that thing?" Tony just gives that classic Stark grin, "Yeah, but don't tell anyone." The mission makes headlines across the globe. News stations run grainy footage of this mysterious armored figure. Who is he? A new weapon? A vigilante? A superhero? Tony, back at his mansion, is bruised, exhausted, but for the first time in his life, he feels like he's doing something real. He takes a sip of his scotch, stares at the arc reactor glowing in his chest, and whispers to himself, "I am Iron Man." But the battle's just beginning. Because Obadiah Stane? He's not about to let his empire slip away without a fight. Tony Stark is back in his workshop, his mind buzzing like a supercharged reactor. After the fiery test flight and the terrifying fall that nearly cost him his life, you'd think he might slow down. But nah, that's not Tony. That's not how his brain works. Instead, he doubles down, driven by this mix of adrenaline, curiosity, and straight-up obsession. We see him tweaking his suit design late into the night. The holograms are spinning in midair, the robotic arms are moving in sync with his commands, and the workshop feels alive, almost like a character itself. Tony's got his classic AC/DC blasting in the background, the kind of vibe that makes you feel like this is where legends are built. But amidst the genius playboy energy, something's shifting in Tony. It's not just about building a cool toy anymore, it's about responsibility. He knows that his weapons put him in this mess, that his name is stamped on the missiles that were pointed right back at him in that desert. And that guilt, that realization, it's fueling every single bolt and plate of his new armor. Meanwhile, outside Tony's high-tech cave in Malibu, Obadiah Stane is playing his own game. He's got that big corporate shark smile, shaking hands in public, but in the shadows, he's pulling strings. He knows Tony's unpredictable, and that makes him dangerous. Obadiah is a man who thrives on control, profits, power, reputation. And Tony, his so-called partner, is suddenly threatening all of that. Back in the workshop, Tony straps into his latest prototype, sleek gold and titanium alloy, built to withstand crazy high altitudes and insane stress tests. The HUD lights up inside the helmet, and for the first time, the pieces are coming together. This isn't just a prototype anymore. It's the birth of Iron Man. Tony's humor, of course, never takes a back seat. He jokes with JRIS, argues with Dummy the Robot, and casually throws in quips like he's hosting his own late-night show. But you can see in his eyes, this isn't playtime. This is war, but on his terms. And then the scene shifts. A delivery truck pulls up outside Tony's mansion. Pepper Potts walks in, curious and a little suspicious. She's been watching Tony act stranger than usual, working all night, hiding things, dodging questions. Pepper's loyalty to him runs deep, but she's not blind. She knows he's up to something big. Tony tries to deflect with his usual charm, but Pepper presses him. And for the first time, he lets her in, at least a little. That vulnerability, that trust, it's a subtle but powerful moment. Pepper isn't just his assistant anymore. She's his anchor. Meanwhile, across the world, the 10 Rings are rebuilding. Raza, scarred but alive, oversees his men as they gather the broken remains of Tony's first suit. It's a brutal reminder that nothing stays buried forever. They might not understand the genius behind the design, but they know one thing. It's powerful, and power like that attracts men like Obadiah Stane. As the camera cuts between Malibu and Afghanistan, you can feel the storm brewing. Tony is racing to finish his armor, to prove something, not just to himself, but to the world. And Obadiah? He's lurking, waiting, ready to strike. By the time Tony completes the gold and red upgrade, the iconic suit we all know, it's not just a suit of armor. It's a symbol. A middle finger to everyone who underestimated him, betrayed him, or used his weapons for chaos. And with that, Iron Man is officially born. The stakes are higher, the enemies are watching, and Tony Stark? He's just getting warmed up. The night is calm over the desert, but deep inside the shadows of war-torn Afghanistan, chaos is brewing. Families hide in fear. Children cry as armed men from the 10 Rings terrorize villages. The same weapons Tony once built, the ones that made Stark Industries billions, are now being used to destroy innocent lives. And Tony knows it. Back in Malibu, he stands before his newly completed creation, the Mark III. Sleek, bold, dripping with red and gold, it's no longer a clunky prototype. It's a symbol. The symbol of a man who finally understands the weight of his legacy. Tony suits up. The helmet locks in place, the HUD lights up, and suddenly, the billionaire playboy is gone. In his place, Iron Man is born. He rockets into the night sky, breaking the sound barrier with a roar that echoes like thunder. And his destination? Gulmira, the very village where Yinsen's family once lived. The place now crushed under the boot of the 10 Rings. When he lands, the scene explodes with raw intensity. The villagers scatter as the terrorists prepare their weapons, ready to mow down anyone in their way. But before a single trigger is pulled, a metallic shadow drops from the sky. Boom! Iron Man slams into the ground like a meteor. Dust rises, men shout, weapons aim. But Tony doesn't flinch. His targeting system locks on, and in a blink, the fight begins. Bullets rain down on him like a storm, but they bounce off his armor like pebbles. The terrorists panic, their bravado replaced with sheer terror. One by one, Tony dismantles them, disarming rifles, crushing rockets, firing off precision missiles that hit with pinpoint accuracy. And then comes the moment that seals Iron Man's legend. A father is dragged out into the open, his son crying as gunmen press a rifle to his head. In the chaos, time slows. Tony scans the scene, calculates the angles, and with one perfect blast, he takes out the terrorists while leaving the father unharmed. The boy stares at the armored figure, his wide eyes filled with both fear and awe. And though Tony doesn't say a word, that moment speaks volumes. He isn't just fighting to erase his guilt. He's fighting to give people hope. With the terrorists defeated, Tony destroys the stockpile of Stark weapons. Explosions light up the desert night, a firestorm that marks the end of an era. For years, Tony Stark's name had been etched on the sides of bombs and missiles. But tonight, that name means something different. It means justice. As the smoke clears, Iron Man takes off into the sky, leaving behind a liberated village and a promise. Things are going to change. But back in America, Tony's actions don't go unnoticed. Satellite feeds catch glimpses of the armored figure tearing through Gulmira, and the military goes on high alert. Colonel James Rhodes, Tony's best friend and a man sworn to protect his country, sees the footage. He doesn't know it yet, but his old buddy is the man behind the mask. And while the world begins to whisper about the mysterious metal warrior, Obadiah Stane makes his move. He travels to Afghanistan, to the same men Tony just dismantled, and recovers the twisted remains of the Mark I armor. His eyes gleam with ambition. He knows exactly what he's looking at. The game is shifting. Tony Stark may have built the first Iron Man suit, but Obadiah Stane? He's about to weaponize it for something far darker. The hero is rising, the villain is plotting, and the clash between them is going to shake the world. The world has just witnessed something extraordinary. A lone armored figure swooped into a war zone, dismantled a terrorist army, and vanished into the skies. To the villagers, he's a savior. To the Ten Rings, he's a nightmare. And to the U.S. military, he's a dangerous unknown. Colonel James Rhodes, stationed back at Edwards Air Force Base, studies grainy satellite footage. His men scramble for answers, trying to classify what exactly they're dealing with. But Rhodey, a man of precision and loyalty, feels something deeper. There's a familiarity in the movements, a signature in the chaos, though he doesn't dare say it out loud. Back at Stark's mansion in Malibu, Tony removes the suit, drenched in sweat and adrenaline. The mission to Gulmira wasn't just a test of his armor, it was a test of his soul. For the first time in years, he feels like he's actually done something good. But his body is trembling, his heart pounding, both from the reactor keeping him alive and the weight of responsibility pressing harder with every step. Pepper walks in, and instantly, she knows something has changed. Tony's not the reckless billionaire who throws parties and dodges consequences. There's a fire in his eyes now, a purpose she's never seen before. But as much as she cares, she's also worried. She sees the toll it's taking on him, the bruises, the exhaustion, the obsession. Tony brushes it off with his signature charm, but beneath the banter, his walls are cracking. He's trying to balance being Tony Stark, the genius, the face of Stark Industries, with being Iron Man, the protector, the warrior, and it's a line that grows thinner by the hour. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, Obadiah Stane is busy weaving his own web. In the dim light of a desert bunker, the Ten Rings drag out the charred remains of the Mark I. The terrorists hope to rebuild it for themselves, but Obadiah's interest is far more dangerous. He sees not just a suit of armor, but the key to ultimate power. His expression is cold, calculating. He doesn't flinch at the sight of twisted metal or the mention of Yinsen's sacrifice. To Obadiah, this isn't about lives, it's about legacy. Tony may think he's redefining Stark Industries, but Obadiah has no intention of letting decades of profits slip away because of a sudden attack of conscience. When he returns stateside, Obadiah visits Tony under the guise of concern. He plays the role of the mentor, the father figure, the man Tony once trusted. But his words drip with manipulation. He reminds Tony of responsibility, of image, of the greater good that Stark Industries supposedly serves. But Tony isn't buying it. For once, he pushes back. He insists that the company won't build weapons anymore, that they'll move toward clean energy, that Stark Industries will mean something. Obadiah smiles, but inside, fury boils. He's been quietly orchestrating arms deals behind Tony's back, keeping the business alive with backdoor agreements. And now, his protege, his golden goose, is threatening to shut it all down. The tension between them grows, invisible but undeniable. It's no longer a partnership, it's a silent war. Later that night, Tony tests new upgrades to the suit. His workshop glows with holograms and sparks as he refines the armor's flight systems and weaponry. Jarvis assists with calculations, each modification pushing the suit closer to perfection. But this is more than engineering, it's obsession. Every upgrade is a layer of armor not just for his body, but for his conscience. The more he builds, the more he believes he can undo the damage his weapons caused. But deep down, he knows it's not that simple. And while Tony pushes forward, Pepper becomes his anchor. She sees the man behind the metal, the sleepless nights, the unspoken guilt, the fragile humanity. And though she doesn't fully understand the scope of what he's creating, she knows this path is dangerous. For Tony Stark, the line between savior and self-destruction is razor thin. And somewhere in the shadows of Stark Industries, Obadiah Stane begins work of his own. Using the scraps of Tony's first suit, he commissions a secret project. Bigger, stronger, deadlier. The stage is being set. On one side stands a man trying to right his wrongs, armored in hope. On the other, a man armored in greed, willing to burn the world if it means staying in power. The collision between them is inevitable. Tony Stark's Malibu mansion isn't just a house. It's his sanctuary, his workshop, and his fortress of solitude all rolled into one. At this point in the movie, the mansion is basically ground zero for his double life. On the surface, Tony's still the billionaire playboy, cracking jokes and dodging responsibilities. But behind closed doors, that basement lab is where Iron Man is truly being born. And let me tell you, these lab sequences are some of the most rewatchable scenes in the MCU. Because while, yeah, we're watching Tony tinker with wires and holograms, what's actually happening is character evolution. Every spark, every failure, every messy prototype, it's all part of Tony rebuilding himself. He's not just fixing armor, he's fixing Tony Stark. Now, one of the coolest sequences comes when Tony decides to test out his repulsor gloves. He straps them on like it's just another Tuesday project, sets them to low power, and tells his AI assistant, JARVIS, we're just going to take it slow. But Tony Stark being Tony Stark? Slow isn't in his DNA. He cranks up the power, points his palms forward, and boom! He gets blasted backward across the room, crashing into the wall like a ragdoll. And what's his reaction? He doesn't sulk. He doesn't quit. He laughs. Because failure for Tony isn't an ending, it's fuel. It's like the movie saying, yeah, he's going to screw up, but he'll get back up, and each time he does, he's closer to being Iron Man. Meanwhile, Pepper Potts is still trying to hold Stark Industries together, while her boss is down in the basement blowing holes in the drywall. She catches glimpses of what he's doing, but she doesn't fully understand it yet. And that tension, that sense of Tony hiding a secret life right under her nose, builds some of the most underrated drama in the film. But then we hit another turning point, the suit assembly montage. This isn't just Tony bolting metal together, it's cinematic magic. We're talking slow-motion shots, mechanical arms locking pieces into place, HUD graphics flickering to life, and JARVIS syncing systems like some futuristic DJ. And let's not forget the legendary test flight sequence. The moment Tony straps into the Mark II suit for the first time, the movie levels up. He starts off indoors, firing the repulsors, stabilizing his balance. It's clunky, chaotic, and honestly kinda hilarious. He's bouncing off walls like a rookie driver who just learned stick shift. But then he takes it outside, and when he lifts off into the night sky, man, goosebumps. The suit whirs, the boosters ignite, and for the first time, Tony Stark isn't trapped. He isn't haunted by his cave. He's flying. But, classic Stark, he pushes it too far. He climbs higher, chasing that thrill, until the suit literally ices over in the stratosphere. He panics, systems fail, and for a moment, it looks like Iron Man is going to be a one-and-done experiment. But Tony wrestles control back, plummets toward Earth, and somehow manages to crash land into his own roof. Not exactly a smooth landing, but hey, it's progress. This whole sequence is basically the movie's way of showing us that Iron Man isn't perfect. He's not some alien god or a super soldier. He's just a dude with brains, guts, and enough stubbornness to keep testing until he gets it right. And that relatability? That's why audiences in 2008, and even now, were hooked. And while Tony's out there figuring himself out, Obadiah Stane is working behind the scenes, pulling strings in ways Tony doesn't even realize yet. The real villain isn't just waiting in the shadows, he's already inside Stark's circle. But that reveal? Oh, we're not there yet. Because first, we've got Tony Stark's ultimate flex moment, showing off his creation to the world, whether they're ready or not. So now that Tony Stark has survived his first chaotic test flight, he's got a taste of something he hasn't felt in a long time. Freedom. Not just freedom from that cave in Afghanistan, but freedom from his own past. And what's wild is, he doesn't stop to rest. He dives straight back into the workshop, tweaking, upgrading, and perfecting his design. Because for Tony, this isn't just a hobby, it's his redemption arc welded together piece by piece. JRVS, his ever-loyal AI, becomes his co-pilot, and honestly, his partner in crime. Their back-and-forth banter isn't just comic relief, it's vital. Because where Tony is impulsive and reckless, JRVS is calm, methodical, and logical. Together, they balance out, almost like a futuristic buddy cop duo, but with plasma beams and holograms. Now let's talk about one of the coolest visuals in the film, the suit painting sequence. Stark is staring at this raw silver Mark II armor, and while it's functional, it's not stylish. And if there's one thing Tony Stark can't resist, it's style. He pulls up a holographic color wheel and casually tells JRVS, "Let's try something with a little hot rod red." The hologram spins, the suit shines in crimson and gold, and just like that, we get the birth of the classic Iron Man look. That scene hits different because it's not just about painting metal, it's about identity. The man who was once defined by weapons and destruction is now creating something iconic, something heroic. That red and gold isn't just flashy, it's symbolic. But while Tony's building his future, Obadiah Stane is quietly cementing himself as the shadow in the story. Behind the polished smile and mentor persona, Stane is orchestrating darker things. He's already made a deal with the Ten Rings, the same terrorist group that captured Tony in the first place. And when they show him the wreckage of Tony's original Mark I armor from the desert, oh boy, you can literally see the gears turning in his head. He doesn't just see scraps of metal, he sees opportunity. Back in Malibu, Tony decides to push his new Mark III suit to the limit. And this is where the movie gifts us one of the most satisfying test scenes in superhero history. The garage transforms into a launch bay, mechanical arms pull pieces into place, and the armor locks in with those iconic metallic clicks. You can almost hear the audience holding their breath the first time they watch this, because we all know this is no longer a prototype. This is Iron Man, for real. The suit powers up, HUD flickers on, Tony smirks, and with a blast of the repulsors, he shoots into the night sky again. Only this time, no crashing into walls, no icing over at high altitudes. This is controlled, precise, confident. And what's his first mission? A personal one. He overhears reports of the Ten Rings terrorizing a village in Gulmira, the same place that still haunts him from his captivity. This is where Tony Stark draws the line. He's not just testing armor anymore. He's taking it to the battlefield, not for profit, not for fame, but to make things right. This entire transition, from reckless tinkerer to someone who actively chooses to be a hero, cements Tony as more than just a rich guy in a metal suit. He's on a collision course with destiny. And what makes it better? The film balances this heavy arc with humor. Because even when Tony's suiting up for war, you still get moments where he's cocky, where he jokes, where he plays it cool. That's Tony Stark. Meanwhile, Pepper Potts is catching on that Tony's hiding something huge. She's loyal, she cares, but she's also starting to realize that whatever he's building in that basement is about to change everything. Not just for him, but for the world. And then, in the background, you feel it. Stane's betrayal isn't just coming, it's brewing. Because the second Tony decides to step into that village with his suit, the world is about to see Iron Man for the very first time. Back in Malibu, the golden glow of the California sunset bounces off the waves, hitting Stark's oceanfront mansion like it's some kind of movie set. But inside, the atmosphere is far from glamorous. Tony's been running test after test with JRVS, tweaking his suit, pushing his body and his mind to the limit. He's not the same carefree billionaire we met at the start. He's wired, restless, and dead set on making Iron Man more than just a flashy prototype. Pepper, meanwhile, is caught between admiration and concern. She sees the passion in Tony's eyes, but she also sees the toll it's taking on him. Late nights, dangerous tests, risky ideas. It's like watching someone play with fire and hoping they don't get burned. But Tony? He thrives in chaos. That's his arena. Now, Obadiah Stane, the smiling corporate shark, continues tightening his grip behind the scenes. He's already cut a shady deal with Raza and the Ten Rings, securing the remnants of Tony's original cave-built armor. The militants don't even realize they're just pawns in a much bigger game. Stane has what he needs, the blueprint of Tony's genius. And in his hands, it's about to become something darker, heavier, and far more destructive. Cut to Pepper. She's quietly snooping around Stark Industries' secure files. At first, it looks like nothing but corporate jargon, but then her face changes. Shock, anger, disgust. She discovers that weapons are still being shipped out under Tony's name, behind his back. Weapons that are fueling wars, hurting innocents, staining the Stark legacy even deeper. And guess who's at the center of this betrayal? Stane, the man who Tony trusted like family. The tension spikes as Pepper, nerves of steel despite her trembling hands, pulls out a flash drive. She sneaks the incriminating files onto it, her heartbeat racing, knowing full well that if she gets caught, it could mean game over. But Pepper Potts, she's tougher than anyone gives her credit for. She's not just Tony's assistant anymore. She's stepping into the role of ally, confidant, and, whether she admits it yet or not, the heart that keeps Tony grounded. Meanwhile, Tony himself is out testing the skies again, this time with more confidence. The Mark III armor, with its red and gold finish, gleams like a sports car crossed with a fighter jet. The HUD lights up, systems sync perfectly, and Tony blasts higher, faster, smoother. For a moment, he's not a man haunted by past mistakes. He's free. And when he flips through the clouds, cutting trails of vapor like a daredevil with a death wish, you feel that rush with him. But freedom doesn't last long. News reports stream in, villages under attack, families torn apart, people crying out for help. And Tony realizes he's not done yet. The fight isn't over, not by a long shot. Back in the shadows, Stane meets with his engineers. They're working tirelessly to replicate Tony's reactor-powered armor, but there's a problem. They can't figure out how to shrink the arc reactor to fit in a compact chest unit. Frustration boils over, and Stane's mask of politeness cracks. He explodes, slamming his fist, bellowing, "Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps!" His rage echoes through the lab, a chilling reminder of just how far he's willing to go. And that's when it hits you. Stane doesn't just want to rival Tony. He wants to outdo him, crush him, and seize everything Stark Industries represents. For him, it's not about protection. It's not about innovation. It's about control. As Pepper rushes to meet Agent Coulson of S.H.I.E.L.D. with her findings, the web tightens. The stage is set. Stane's betrayal, Tony's transformation, Pepper's bravery. It's all converging. And somewhere deep in that mansion, J.A.R. Vyas runs silent simulations, as if even the AI can sense the storm that's about to hit. The battle lines are drawn, and the first Iron Man is about to face the monster his own company helped create. The truth comes out. Tony Stark, for the first time since his cave escape, feels the walls closing in. He's built the suit, he's had his share of wild rides, but now his own empire, the very company carrying his name, is being twisted right under his nose. And the guy pulling the strings? Obadiah Stane. Pepper Potts, now braver than ever, sneaks into Obadiah's office. At first, she looks like just an assistant doing paperwork, but nah, this is espionage mode. She hacks into his computer, and boom, receipts pop up, incriminating files, shady transfers. What does she find? Evidence that Obadiah has been dealing under the table with the 10 Rings, the same terrorists that kidnapped Tony in the first place, the same group who had Stark Industries weapons stockpiled like candy. And when Pepper realizes this, her heart drops. The dots connect. Tony almost died because his mentor set him up. The company she's been loyal to is complicit in chaos across the world. Obadiah ain't just corrupt, he's downright treacherous. She quickly downloads the proof onto a USB drive, sweating bullets because Obadiah could walk in any second. And when she's finally done, she's got that mission accomplished, but inside, she's terrified. She knows this is dynamite evidence. She can't take this to Tony directly. Obadiah's got too much reach. So she makes the boldest move of her career. She takes the evidence straight to none other than Agent Phil Coulson from S.H.I.E.L.D. Yep. The same Coulson who's been popping up here and there, polite, patient, and always dropping "we'll handle it" vibes. Pepper sits across from him, clutching that USB like it's the Holy Grail, and spills everything. And Coulson? Cool as ice. He doesn't flinch, doesn't act shocked, just takes it in and says, "We'll take it from here." But here's the catch. Things are never that simple. Because back at Stark Industries, Obadiah realizes his office has been compromised. And that Pepper has been poking around. Dude flips the switch. Now, he's not hiding behind corporate masks anymore. He's going full villain. And when Tony finds out that Obadiah was the one who ordered the hit on him in Afghanistan, that's the dagger in his heart. Betrayal, not from a stranger, but from family. That mentor figure who toasted his victories, guided his decisions, now revealed as a snake. You can see the weight crush Tony, because Iron Man was born out of trauma, and now that trauma has a face. But Tony doesn't have time to sulk. He has to act, because Pepper's in danger, because Obadiah's not just scheming, he's building something. Something bigger, something deadlier. And here's the visual punch, the reveal of the Iron Monger suit. Obadiah didn't just take Tony's blueprints, he supersized them. A monstrous industrial-grade mech suit, raw power without finesse, the corporate version of Iron Man. And when you see it, you realize this ain't about subtlety. This is about brute force, control, domination. So now the board is set. Tony, weakened, still perfecting his arc reactor tech. Pepper, holding the key evidence but standing on dangerous ground. Coulson, waiting in the wings with his quiet S-Shield squad. And Obadiah, ready to unleash hell in his shiny new war machine. It's the calm before the storm, the last deep breath before the final showdown. Iron Man versus Iron Monger. The tension snaps like a whip. Obadiah Stane, no longer the warm mentor figure, storms into his lab with one single mission: unleash his creation. The Iron Monger suit isn't sleek like Tony's Mark III. It's not designed for precision. Nah, this monster is pure power and intimidation. It's the embodiment of everything Stark Industries used to stand for: unchecked, militarized industrial destruction. Meanwhile, Tony's running on fumes. Literally. His mini arc reactor, the one Pepper insisted he keep, is the only thing powering him now. His Mark III suit is functional but strained, every repulsor blast draining what little energy he has left. He knows he's about to fight a machine twice his size, piloted by a man who has no limits, no conscience. The first clash. The night sky over Stark Industries splits open with chaos as the two armored titans finally face each other. Obadiah doesn't waste words. He slams that massive armored fist straight into Tony, sending him crashing through cars like tin cans. Sparks fly. Sirens wail. It's the kind of fight that turns a corporate parking lot into a battlefield. Tony scrambles, firing repulsor blasts, but they barely dent Ironmonger's thick plating. Every time he lands a shot, Obadiah just powers forward like a tank, his voice booming from inside the suit. "You built your legacy on my back, Tony, and now I'm gonna tear it down." The scale difference is insane. Ironmonger's fists are like wrecking balls. He grabs a car with people inside, threatening them just to get under Tony's skin. That's when you realize, this isn't just a fight. It's a clash of philosophies. Tony built Iron Man to protect. Obadiah built Monger to dominate. Pepper's role in the storm. While chaos erupts outside, Pepper, Coulson, and the S-Shield team scramble inside Stark Industries' headquarters. Coulson lays it out cold. The only way to stop Obadiah is to overload the arc reactor powering the entire building. Pepper, hands shaking but determined, takes on the responsibility. Imagine it. While Tony is literally getting thrown through walls, Pepper is deep inside the facility, trying to reroute systems and push the reactor to critical. And here's where the cinematic tension peaks. The dual narrative. Tony versus Obadiah outside, Pepper racing against time inside. If either of them falters, game over. David versus Goliath. Back outside, Tony switches strategies. He can't outpunch Monger, so he has to outthink him. Using his smaller frame and agility, he zips between attacks, darting around buildings, using every gadget at his disposal. He fires mini rockets, deploys flares, even takes the fight vertical, blasting upward into the sky. Obadiah, cocky as ever, follows. The two soar above Los Angeles, armored silhouettes against the night sky. But Tony knows the suit's limits, both his and Obadiah's. He pushes Monger higher and higher, taunting him. "Having fun up here?" And then it happens. Obadiah's massive suit begins to freeze over, the same icing problem Tony had tested for and solved weeks earlier. Obadiah didn't know about it. His overconfidence becomes his weakness. For a brief moment, Ironmonger stiffens midair, the suit frosting over as the altimeter spikes. Tony smirks, even in pain. "How'd you solve the icing problem?" Obadiah stutters. "Icing problem?" Boom! The Monger plummets, crashing back to Earth like a meteor. The final gamble. But it's not over. Obadiah claws his way out of the wreckage, still alive, still fueled by rage. The fight drags back to the arc reactor platform itself, the very heart of Stark Industries. Tony's suit is failing, power at critical, systems redlining. He can't win this slugfest. That's when Tony connects the dots. Pepper's down below, primed to overload the reactor. He locks eyes with her across the chaos, gives her the signal, and makes the ultimate play. He holds Obadiah in place, right over the reactor's core. Pepper? Push the button. Pepper hesitates, terrified. Tony yells again, with the last strength in his voice. She slams the control. The arc reactor overloads. Blinding white light erupts from the floor. Energy floods upward like a shockwave. Obadiah's suit convulses, sparking his eye, frying from the inside. He screams, thrashing as the power surge consumes him, until finally the Iron Monger explodes in a violent burst, collapsing into the reactor chamber. Smoke clears. Pepper shields her face. For a moment, silence. Then, out of the wreckage, Tony emerges, battered, suit in pieces, but alive. Pepper rushes to him, panic written across her face. Tony, barely standing, manages to crack a weak joke. Proof that Tony Stark has a heart. And that's the Iron Monger showdown in all its blow-by-blow glory. One of the MCU's first truly epic climaxes. Messy, destructive, emotional, and symbolic. Tony's defiance. So the dust settles, or at least everyone thinks it does. But the real storm doesn't happen in the skies above Stark Industries. Nope, it happens in front of flashing cameras, blaring microphones, and reporters screaming Tony's name like seagulls fighting over fries on a Santa Monica pier. Tony Stark, fresh off surviving a literal life-or-death throwdown with his mentor-turned-enemy, finds himself standing in front of the press. And you can tell, man, this isn't just another staged media event. Nah. This one's personal. Reporters are buzzing. What happened in Malibu? Who was the guy in the armored suit? Is Stark Industries building weapons again? And Tony? He's got that look. The mix of smug billionaire and rebellious rock star who's about to drop the headline of the decade. See, Pepper Potts, his ride-or-die assistant, who's basically the only person who can keep Tony from spinning out, slips him the official script. The neat, polished lie that the world's supposed to hear. You know, damage control. It says, the armored hero was a bodyguard. Stark Enterprises has no involvement. Everything's fine. Move along, people. But Tony? Nah, that ain't him. That ain't Tony Stark. This dude doesn't do scripted. He doesn't do fake smiles and corporate spin. He doesn't just play the game. He rewrites the damn rules. He stares down at that paper, then back up at the crowd. You can practically hear his brain going, why hide? Why pretend? Screw it. Let's make history. And then, boom, he says the words that change everything. That flipped the entire superhero game on its head. The words that are now cemented in cinema history, etched into every Marvel fan's memory like gospel. Open quote, I am Iron Man. Close quote, no secret identity, no hiding behind a mask in the shadows, no Clark Kent glasses, just raw, unfiltered Tony Stark telling the world, yeah, that badass in the suit, that's me. The press room explodes, shouts, flashes, chaos. The world is spinning. But Tony? He's just standing there with that cocky little smirk, like he knows exactly what he's just unleashed. And that, my friends, isn't just the ending of Iron Man 2008. That's the launch pad. That's the exact moment where the Marvel Cinematic Universe stops being an idea and becomes a phenomenon. Because here's the thing. Up until this point, superhero movies, they always danced around the whole secret identity trope. But Tony Stark, in true billionaire playboy fashion, just said nah. He kicked the doors wide open. And the ripple effects? They'd change everything. Cue the credits rolling, that rocking AC/DC-style vibe still pumping, the audience in 2008 losing their damn minds in theaters. People were clapping, cheering, texting their friends like, dude, you need to see this movie. And then, oh man, Marvel pulls the sneakiest move of all time. The first post-credit scene. Something no one in mainstream cinema was ready for. The screen fades back in. Tony Stark walks into his penthouse, still buzzing from the media storm he just set off. And standing in the shadows, none other than Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson himself, rocking the black trench coat, the eye patch, the cold-as-ice delivery. And what does he say? He drops the word that would define an entire generation of superhero storytelling. Open quote, I'm here to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative. Close quote. Boom. Mic drop. That was it. That was the spark that lit the fuse for an interconnected universe no one thought was possible. In that moment, Marvel Studios didn't just end a movie. They started a revolution. The cold truth of Betrayal. Tony Stark is finally connecting the dots. Up until now, he's been riding this wave of reinvention, turning himself from a reckless billionaire playboy into something more. But the thing about change is, it shakes up the people around you. Some cheer you on, some fear you, and some, they flat out betray you. So remember Obadiah Stane, the man Tony always thought of as a trusted business partner, almost like family? Well, the cracks in that relationship are now too wide to ignore. The deeper Tony digs into the weapons supply, the clearer it becomes. Someone inside Stark Industries is funneling weapons to the Ten Rings. And surprise, surprise, it all points back to Obadiah. There's this chilling scene when Obadiah shows his true colors. He meets with Raza, the leader of the Ten Rings, out in the desert. Raza's all scarred up from his encounter with the Mark I. Yeah, Tony left him bruised and humiliated. But Raza still has something valuable, the pieces of Tony's original suit. Twisted metal, fried circuits, all the scraps Tony built in that cave. And Obadiah, he's drooling over it. It's here we get that classic Marvel villain moment. Calm, cold, and calculated. Obadiah doesn't see Tony as his partner anymore. He sees him as competition. And worse, a liability. He wants that tech. He wants that power. And nothing, not even Tony, will stand in his way. With his connections, his resources, and his iron ambition, Obadiah begins plotting his own path to domination. Meanwhile, Tony's out here wrestling with his conscience. He's putting the finishing touches on his new arc reactor design. Sleeker, more efficient. It's like he's evolving, step by step, into the Iron Man we know. But the more he builds, the more danger he puts himself in. Because Obadiah, he's watching. He's waiting. And when the time comes, he's going to strike. And strike he does. We get that infamous moment, Obadiah using a sonic paralyzer device on Tony. It's brutal. Tony, this genius, this man who can build miracles with his bare hands, suddenly frozen. He can't move, can't fight, can barely breathe. And as Tony's helpless, Obadiah leans in, whispering betrayal right into his ear. He steals Tony's arc reactor, the very thing keeping him alive. This is the ultimate gut punch. Tony, stripped of his lifeline, left to die in his own home. It's a betrayal so personal it burns deeper than any bullet or explosion. And yet, it's this moment of weakness that sets up the firestorm about to come. Because Iron Man isn't just a suit. It's not just an arc reactor. It's Tony's will to survive, to fight back, to prove he's more than the weapon he created. Pepper, meanwhile, is stepping into her own role as the unsung hero. She's connecting with S.H.I.E.L.D., getting real about the danger Obadiah poses. Agent Phil Coulson shows up again, casually dropping his whole Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division mouthful. Yeah, the seeds of something bigger are being planted right here. But for Tony, it's do or die. Weak, fading, but not broken. He crawls to his workshop. And here's where that little arc reactor he built earlier, the one Pepper wanted him to keep as a proof that Tony Stark has a heart, saves his life. It's poetic. The same small piece of tech he thought was obsolete now becomes his last hope. Tony powers himself back up. The heart of Iron Man is beating again. And with it, the rage, the determination, and the fight to take Obadiah down. This is where the movie shifts gears, from betrayal to showdown. The stage is set for a clash of titans. Tony, the reborn hero, versus Obadiah, the corrupted villain. The man with the heart of iron against the man with a heart of greed. And trust me, things are about to explode.